Hey guys, we're coming back today to finish up Come Away with Peter Pan and Tink to find out what happened with Peter's silly shadow. So you were supposed to read pages 15, 16, and 17 on your own Tuesday or yesterday if you chose to do it yesterday. And if you did, you should have found out that Wendy has a possible solution. And when she mentions it to Peter, he says, "Sewn? What is that?" So when we pick up today, she's responding to him for not knowing what it means to sew something on. You're dreadfully ignorant. Now, ignorant is a word that describes someone who doesn't know very much, but acts like they do. So, Peter Pan's over there kind of, well, he doesn't really act like he knows stuff, but she's finding out that Peter Pan, to her, has a short name, he has a silly address, and now he doesn't know what sewn means. So she's like, you don't know very much. And this also is not a very kind thing to say to somebody, I guess, unless it's true. But I mean, it's not calling them stupid. It's just saying you probably should educate yourself a little more. No, I'm not. But she was exulting in his ignorance. Okay, so exulting means that she's having a good time with the fact that he is ignorant. It's kind of making her giggle, like she thinks it's funny. "I shall sew it on for you, my little man," she said, though he was tall as herself. And she got out her sewing bag and sewed the shadow on to Peter's foot. So we have here a possible solution. If we continue reading and it works. "I dare say it will hurt a little," she warned him. Why do you think it's going to hurt him a little? Yeah, probably because sewing a shadow onto him obviously would not feel very good. "Oh, I shan't cry," said Peter, who was already of the opinion that he had never cried in his life. Now, he's saying here he's never cried, but we just learned on page 15 he was sobbing, right? So he's kind of ashamed, I guess, to admit that he's cried. And he clenched his teeth and did not cry, and soon his shadow was behaving properly, though still a little creased. So he was still a little draggled, a little creased, not so pretty from being off of him and playing. But I'm just going to make a note here that it worked. And I am quite impressed that he did not cry, because I think I would have. "Perhaps I should have ironed it," Wendy said thoughtfully, but Peter, boylike, was indifferent to appearances. Indifferent to appearances means he doesn't care too much what it looks like. And he was now jumping about in the wildest glee, so yay, Peter's happy. Alas, he had already forgotten that he owed his bliss to Wendy. He thought he had attached the shadow himself. Oh boy. Peter. "How clever am I?" he crowed rapturously. "Oh, the cleverness of me." Oof, that's not so nice, right? It is humiliating to have to confess that this conceit of Peter was one of his most fascinating qualities. To put it with brutal frankness, there never was a cockier boy. All right, there's a lot of words in this paragraph, guys. Let's break this down just a little bit. So he's crowing rapturously. So he's going on and on and on and on about how clever he is, and he didn't even come up with the idea. Then we have the word humiliating. Humiliating means that you're embarrassed. To confess that his conceit. So somebody who's conceited. Think about how Peter's acting, his actions right now. They're saying the conceit of Peter. So he's like, "Oh, look at me, I'm so clever, ah, ha, ha, ha." Right? Not a very good word. I'm going to put a down arrow. It's a negative connotation. But the way that he is conceited is one of his most fascinating qualities. So it's interesting. Fascinating means something is really interesting. And I would think that if somebody who could actually claim that they were the ones that were clever, I would probably be fascinated too. I'd be like, hold up. Why do you think you're clever? That was my idea. Interesting that you would think that. And then it says to put it with brutal frankness. So to be frank is to be very honest. Like, I'm not going to pretend with you. I'm not going to lie to you to make you feel better. I'm going to tell you the truth. So brutal is like harsh. So she says to put it with harsh realness. I'm going to be real with you right now, as we might say. There was never a cockier boy. So someone who's cocky is also typically conceited. Those two words kind of go together. So cocky's like, I'm so cool. Oh, yeah. Look at me. Okay, so we learn a lot about Peter and his character in this paragraph. And it seems overall that he's kind of I'm just going to put like a straight face. Like, he's not a bad character, but he's got some things he should work on. But for the moment, Wendy was shocked. Wendy is shocked. And why do we think she's shocked? Of course, because he's claiming her idea as his own, saying he's clever. You braggart, she exclaimed. That's word braggart. It goes a lot back with being boastful, bragging, with frightful sarcasm. Of course, I did nothing. So I know you guys have probably heard sarcasm, which means she's saying she did nothing, but she knows that she did. So she's saying, like, yeah, okay, so I didn't do that. That's being sarcastic. If we look at our key details on this page, because we are continuing with our key details to be able to summarize, the main key details, there's not a lot. We have a lot of words on this page, but when we're talking about key details, there's not a lot. What we do have, get rid of that, guys. What we do have are a major solution, which is here. So this would be a key detail in paragraph 37. Wendy sewed on the shadow, and it worked. And I think that we might want to add that we do have this little conflict between Peter and Wendy, that he's bragging about him doing it. Because this may play a part in what happens in the end of our story. Let's flip over and find out. You did a little, Peter said carelessly. I cannot speak. You did a little, Peter said carelessly, and continued to dance. So he gives her a little credit here, but we know she did a lot. A little, she replied with pride. If I am of no use, I can at least withdraw. Wendy, he said, don't withdraw. One girl is more use than 20 boys. And that is the end of this excerpt from Peter and Wendy. So as we're ending, we see the little conflict on the last page between Peter and Wendy. And it is an important conflict. So it is a key detail, because as our short part of the story ends, we find that Peter kind of has an aha moment at the end where he says, don't withdraw. So withdraw means to leave. This word withdraw means to leave. And she's saying, well, I'll just leave then if I'm of no use. And he says, no, don't leave. One girl is more use than 20 boys. So he's saying, this one person here is worth a lot more to me than 20. I'm just going to draw a few. I don't have time to draw 20 boys over here. So he's kind of admitting, I'm not very useful. I don't know if this statement is a fair statement. I think it's a little bit subjective to his point of view. I think he's saying that, and I don't know if you boys that are listening would agree that a girl is of more use than you are. So I don't know if it's a fair statement, but he kind of has a moment where he says, I need you. Nope, you can do a lot more than I can. And so that's how our story ends. So we end with him kind of admitting he needs Wendy and that she is useful and helpful. And I think it's kind of his way of admitting, no, you helped. It was your idea, even though he wanted to take credit for it. So make sure today, as we move forward, that you're thinking about this story as you're planning your writing. You're thinking about the beginning, the middle, that climax, and how the story resolved itself here at the end. As you make sure that your story has the same pieces as this story, and the moments that you've read and the way that you felt when you read it that your reader feels that way. When you started the story, they started it by describing Tinker Bell and what she was doing, and they gave us a lot of dialogue and action. In the middle, they left us hanging with that, oh, is Peter going to get a shadow? And then at the end here, we learned, yes, he did get a shadow, and that those falling actions towards the plot of the end of the story. But as we come to the resolution, we also resolve with Peter saying, nope, nope, you are worth a lot to me. So your story should also have a resolution that kind of ends the story in a way where there's closure. You're not left hanging anymore. You come to an understanding. So I really like this story along with our writing assignment this week, because I think that there's some really great examples here. So remember, if you're struggling as you're planning and you're starting to create your draft, come back to Peter Pan, come back to Come Away, and kind of think about the story, the beginning, the middle, the end, how you're feeling. Does your story leave your reader feeling the same ways? We will see you in class today and talk about where you're at with your writing and what you learned yesterday in the middle part of our story. Talk to you later, guys.